Peace family, welcome to another episode Underground Railroad Productions, UGR TV. Turtle Gang. Been seeing you for quite some time. I have never met somebody who has, you're one of the most adamant brothers I've seen on the scenes when it comes to telling what we call black people on the scenes, when it comes to telling what we call black people that they are indigenous to this country. There's a lot of misconceptions flowing around. I see you, when I was on Facebook, I see you post a lot. I know you have a bloodline that you share that you can actually prove. I know you have history that you can actually prove. Tell the people that are totally fucking confused by all the talk going on in the black community about you're African, no you're Asian, no you're the real Indians, no you're this now. Fuck it, we came from everywhere. People like, I don't know what to think anymore. Turtle Game, just tell the people, clear up some confusion for them, because I know you're real adamant about that.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say welcome to walking. Peace, Wanishi, to all my indigenous relatives on Turtle Island. Basically, when you deal with indigenous culture, everybody on this planet is a descendant of a tribe. Whether you know it or not, you descend from a tribe. Now, all these tribes have their history. A lot of us have been written out of history. It's called paper genocide. Laws were passed starting in 1700s, 1800s, but the final law that was passed was called the Racial Integrity Act, which was passed in 1924. This act changed people it took your nationality away from you and reduced you to a racial category. So that would be Negro, colored, things of that nature. So a lot of us, when you look back on your the census reports, you're gonna find that a lot of your ancestors were documented as being colored. Now, when you understand that the original term for colored represented anyone who was indigenous and what they would say Native American and black, right? But the point is, black is not a nationality. So when they deal with when they say black, they hide in a nationality. Now, a lot of people don't understand, or they don't realize that the actual slave trade started in the Americas and took people to Europe, right? So a lot of what we call slaves, or people who came here during the first arrival of slaves to the Americas, a lot of these people were indigenous people who were initially taken from here and brought back, right? My family happened to be one of those. We have our history, we have our records, we have everything. European, in order to establish, like the first colony established in New Jersey is called Middletown. Middletown sits on the Navesink River. The Navesink is the name of my tribe. Nuwasik, it means those closest to the river, right? So a lot of the history that we have, you can really easily deal with who you truly were when you start decoding the history of the towns and the cities and the boroughs you grew up in. Your family was raised in. My family in particular, we're from New Jersey. We're documented as one of the oldest three families that was on record as being here when the Europeans established their first colony, which was Middletown, which is on the northern bank of the Navesink River. The southern bank of the Navesink River is a town called Red Bank. That's where I'm from, right? A lot of these places that we know of as cities, right? I'll give you an example, New Orleans. New Orleans is a French military outpost, right? Where I'm from, Red Bank, Manhattan, places like this were indigenous cities. And when the Europeans came here, they just overlaid everything that we were already doing. Fulton Street was already here. We was already doing trade on these places. Europeans came here and they just overlaid the roads. I can show them proof of this because my great-great-grandfather was one of the individuals responsible for paving all the indigenous pathways. These indigenous they tell you about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad was native routes, native trade routes, a part of these 5 silk roads that was on this side, all right? The Underground Railroad, the final destination was a place called Nova Scotia, right? When you understand where Nova Scotia is, you understand that Nova Scotia means New Scotland, right? When you deal with Scotland, right, An example for a lot of y'all who like to watch movies, the last King of Scotland dealt with the Uganda. The Ugandans, right, who established what we call Kemet, a lot of them were run out of that area, and they went up into places like Greece. They went up into places like Rome, and they were known as the Etruscans. They were known as the Iberians, right, because they were being persecuted for their religious beliefs. These people were all Coptics, right? And then you know about Kemetic studies, know who the Coptics are, know what it's dealing with in terms of Kemet, right? So these same people who were run out of Kemet, about a year and a half ago, 21 Coptic Christians were beheaded on the Nile, because the same war is still going on now. They established Rome. They established Iberia. These are also the Jews that were in Iberia that were run out, that they like to tell you were white people, and they were not white people. These tribes were known as the Morini and the Mandubi. You can look these tribes up. These tribes fled all the way up into France and places like that, all the way over to England, right? And eventually they came to Greenland, and they established their first homeland in the Americas in a place called Nova Scotia. Now, Nova Scotia means new dark lands. Kemet is what? The dark lands, right? No, Scotland is the dark land. Scot is come from the word scorch. Scorch, as in blackened, right? So now when you're dealing with the term Scot, Scot means dark. So when we talk about Anne Scott, who was the mother of King James, Scott is not a name, it's a title. See, a lot of the things we don't understand is that what we think of as surnames are just descriptive titles, meaning Europeans, when they named things or they designated things, it was either descriptive, locational, right, or functional. So you have names like Miller, right, because those families worked at mills. You have names like Taylor, because those families made clothing. You have people who are known as fishers, because when they encountered these people, they encountered them on the waters and they were fishing. So they called the people fishers. You have families named Rivers. Why? Because when they encountered these families, when they came here, they named them according to their location place, right? So you have family names like Hill, right? Family names like my family, which is Rock, right? When you start to deal with the real understanding of languages, you understand that a lot of the people who, what we assume are surnames, are really descriptive terms given to the people, right? So I could go deeper in it and start breaking it down from the language of my people, which we call our language Lenape, because the language is synonymous with the people, right? But when they steal your language and they steal your identity, what happens is you start to revert and you start to use different names, identities for yourself. One of the first names that we reverted to, right, and I'm speaking for those of us in Lenapehoking, which is all of New Jersey, the 5 boroughs, eastern Pennsylvania, and northern Delaware, all right? So all the people within that territory who lost their tribal identity started to refer to themselves as Moors, because Moor is a general title that references seafaring indigenous nations, right? It doesn't mean Morocco. Somebody from Morocco is not a Moor, he's a Moroccan. Somebody from Mauritania is not a Moor, he's a Mauritanian. If that concept was valid, then if Morocco is short from, if Moor is short for Morocco, then the concept of a Moor would be what we call ourselves, because we come from America, right? So for somebody to start talking like Moor is not a nationality, right? Moor come out of a function, it come out of an action. Mooring is steering. In order to moor a ship, you're guiding a ship, right? Moor, who was the person when Columbus sailed here? Who guided his ship? Pedro the Moor. Moor is a function, just like Taylor is a function, just like Smith is a function. But the Europeans, when they encountered the original Moors, right, they were all melanated people. So through association, Moor became dark. But it's not what it means. Connotatively, it means navigator. That's what it means. But you're going to deal with people who are going to tell you Moor means this and Moor means that, and I'm telling you, they are not educated on the concept. Now, I will break it down for you. There's a tribe called the Nanticoke Lenape Moors in southern Jersey, right? For a long period of time, after they passed laws which denied us the right to carry out our culture, and our culture was simply farming and hunting. All this other stuff y'all want to talk about is just the show. It's regalia, right? Our culture was hunting and farming. When they outlawed that because they wanted to control our food sources, when they outlawed marijuana and hemp because it provided over 1,000 remedies for in terms of foods, medicines, things of that nature. When they outlawed all that, we were forced to start dealing with them on their terms, right? Now, when they removed a lot of us to Oklahoma, the Indians that were removed then were the amalgamated Indians who were a product mainly of the Irish migration and us mixing with the Irish. So a lot of these people, that's why the Indians look the way they look. That's why they look amalgamated. They got the long stringy hair. Because a lot of the ancient European tribes were doing trade with us. Because when you, like I said, the term Moor is not complexion. It eventually meant that, but it meant seafaring nations. So seafaring nations would be any nation who is not landlocked and is on waters, right? So certain nations wouldn't be considered Moors because they landlocked. Their whole culture is not predicated on seafaring, right? So you would include people like Vikings and people like that as Moors, right? This is why they tell you free white people in the definition, they include all different types of people. Because they're dealing with nations who navigated, who are part of ancient treaties. And I can name the 6 ancient treaties, but we could, you know what I mean, we'll do that another time. But there were 6 ancient treaties that united all the tribal families on the planet. All these planets did trade in places like the Isle of Man, which is a small island off of Europe. You know what I mean? Off of England, pardon me. So we're dealing with ancient indigenous cultures that migrated via navigation of boats and ships. Now, we didn't need giant boats because if you're familiar with the Filipino islands, you know you can island hop in canoes. You can get from Africa to the furthest island in the Filipinos because they're so close, you can island hop. Well, you can island hop from Europe to the Americas via Greenland and the islands that are in between that the map don't show. All right? So when they talk about the Bering Strait, those were the Asiatics that came over here at another time. The actual migration that our people took to come here from places like the Middle East, Kemet, Africa, East Africa, came through what we call Europe, Greenland, England, things of that nature. Now, anybody who wants to question this information, all you have to do is look up a group called the Micmac. The Micmac are located in Canada on down to what we call Maine, right? The Micmac have a hieroglyphic script. And within that hieroglyphic script, they also have the Lord's Prayer. So we're dealing with Christians, right? The early Christians, who are not the Christians that we sit up here and fight with. The early Christians were people from the land that we call Kemet. They're called the Coptics. Greek is not a language. Greeks speak Coptic, right? So when we say they spoke Greek, people don't know what they're talking about and they mislead you. There's no such thing as Greek. These people were Coptics, right? These people were Africans who migrated into a different area. It's packed right now. You can't set up something with all these people here. You got to find a little bit of space for yourself so you can have your own space and you can thrive as a nation. So that's what nations was doing. So we have ancient nations that have ancient treaties, right? Those treaties were interrupted in what you call the Inquisition. The Inquisition started in a place called Denmark, right? Amongst white tribes. Why? Because those white tribes had treaties with the other tribes all over the planet. And these people are the people that you would eventually become known as Moors, because Moor means navigator. It don't got nothing to do with complexion. The reason why terms like Tawny Moor were introduced is because the European associated all Moors with being dark because the original people that he met navigating were dark. So the same way we associate hockey players with being white is the same way they associated Moors with being black, right? But as we taught the amalgamated Moors and people like that how to navigate, now you have nationality. It's a general title for indigenous people who come from navigating nations, right? Somebody asked me my nationality, I'm Lenny Lenape. That means the real people. We got a language, we got a river, we got everything. I'll take you to my burial grounds, everywhere. You're standing in my territory right now, right? If we went to Africa right now, everybody would bow down and kiss the ground and respect every deity in Kemet, in Africa, wherever you may be. But our people run around here and don't respect any of the indigenous histories, deities, or nothing. And they wonder why we're in such a bad position, right? You're disrespecting your mothers, you're disrespecting your fathers. Your uncles, put it this way. When we start dealing with genetics, right? You got 4 grandparents. When you double that, you got 8. So every generation you go back doubles, right? So when somebody tells you their great-grandmother was from Nigeria, what about the other 31 of your grandparents that produced you? Because every time you go back, you got to double your grandparents. So what I'm saying is we are a product of international trade. We are a product of many nations coming together dealing with trade. When you deal with trade, you also trade genetics. That's a very heavy part of trade because you have to renew your genetics. If you keep intermixing amongst yourself, we know what that produces, right? So you trade genetics with different people around the planet as well as goods. So this is why we appear the way we appear here in the America. Turn it upside down. This is Turtle Island, Gumbo, Louisiana. You understand? That's the culture of America, and that's the culture that drives the world. It's because no new ideas can be brought in, nothing can happen. It'll just be a stagnant culture. You got many, and if people want to deny that, we can just talk about multiple symbols for the same deity, which shows that you're dealing with different people from different areas, but dealing with the same concept. And the same thing can be said over here. You know what I mean? You run around looking for Ma'at, go to a powwow, you'll see Ma'at walking around. She's not going to be on the wall, living, breathing. You understand? My Ma'at is my clan mothers. You understand? Because if my clan mothers, my elders tell me no, it's a wrap. Because I want to maintain my respect within my family, within my tribe. You understand? Who said that? I told you the slave trade started with Native Americans being brought to England. That's what I said. I never said that. You know what I'm saying? The Africans that eventually were brought here, you know what I mean? They were brought here because they couldn't enslave us anymore. You understand? Why? Because you can't enslave a man in his own home. You know what I mean? And I'm telling you right now, all these inventions, they give credit to African Americans. Ain't no African gonna come to the Americas and tell you when to plant your stuff. It's a science you gotta study. It ain't the same over there as it is here. You gotta know the land, right? So all these achievements that we ascribe to African Americans, these are achievements by Native Americans who had to take on the identity of being African American because they was hanging us. But you think they was hanging people because they was Africans. Africans just want to go home. Nigga from here want to take his shit over. That's a threat. You understand? So all these niggas you seen getting hung in the South, it ain't what you think. They hanging these people because they knew the routes. You understand? They hanging these people because they all had the potential to be Harriet Tubman. Because they all could lead these people in a path to get them away from these Europeans. You know what I'm saying? I can name countless tribes that relocated up into mountains because they didn't want to deal with these Europeans. You know what I'm saying? And those same tribes are still here, but we call Negro, we call color, we call all these different things. And when we try and bring this information to a lot of our people who are black and proud, and I understand that. I understand what's the process that made us proud to be black. Everything we came through. But the point of the matter is you all come from tribes. I don't care if you know your tribe or not, you descend from a tribe. And tribes are only one that have legal jurisdiction over lands. See, the problem is our people don't rise above corporate law. Corporate law is the glass ceiling that you cannot rise above. When you rise above corporate law and understand what international law, which is based on treaty, right? When the police come through here and they snatch us all up, they're going to snatch me with you. But when the remedy comes, my remedy is going to be much different. Because they know who I am and they know they don't have jurisdiction over me via any of this false paperwork. You understand? So my thing is this, we looking for people, we looking for a way out, but all the people who are trying to provide a way out don't have jurisdiction over this land. We need to deal with the people who have the actual jurisdiction of this land, and we need to empower them. The same way the gays were able to create a platform for themselves politically and things of that nature, we have to come together as a people. We have to rally behind the people who actually have the authority. Or what's going to happen is the same thing that happened in Haiti. Now, for a lot of people to understand what happened in Haiti, when Haiti overthrew the French, all they did was step into the powers of position that the French held. They didn't go back to their indigenous culture or their indigenous way of life. So now what you have is, you have a second world government being overthrown. When I say second world government, I'm saying the second government on any land is corporate government. The first government is indigenous, or the tribal government, which signs the charters and the deeds, which allows the corporations to operate on your land. That's called the second world. The third world is somebody who's left out of the first and second world, meaning you're not a tribal government and you're not a corporate government. So when Haiti overthrew the corporate government that was instilled by France, and they didn't reinstate their indigenous government dealing with their clan mothers and their tribes and things of that nature, they fell into what you call a third world country. Now, these third world countries don't have any allies because they're not aligned with the indigenous tribes and they're not aligned with the corporations because they just overthrew one. So now what happens, you have Haiti in a situation that's in now. Also, you have a situation like that with the Lakota out on the reservations. They third world countries because they signed away their indigenous rights, they agreed to go on reservations, and now that they don't have no remedy, right? Nobody is responsible for them. They've fallen into a situation of poverty, you know what I mean? And it's worse than any project in any hood you ever been to. And just one more thing I want to say. When we talk about reservations, you go to a reservation, you see poverty, you see churches, and you see liquor stores. When you go to any hood, you see poverty, you see churches, and you see liquor stores. So what makes you think you're not on a reservation? Yeah, that's what's really going on here. And all these other people posturing, trying to push their religion. I ain't never said one word about my people's religion, because I don't have to, because that's personal, right? When I talk about my history, I'm not going to talk about the history of my religion. I'm talking about the history of my people and us having jurisdiction over these Europeans here. Right, so ain't no foreign religion gonna save you in our situations. That's personal, keep it to yourself. What we have to deal with is who has the real power and jurisdiction. And it's not Kemet, right? It's not Nubia. It's none of these places here. The people who have jurisdiction are the tribes. And we need to deal with the tribes, whether you know your tribe or not. That's who you need to empower. The same way old people empower other old people and they control their votes, the same way homosexuals dealing with the fact that we're indigenous people. But we also have to understand that just because you are melanated, don't think you're not a colonizer. Because if you hear from another land, you pushing another culture here, you colonize. Now, when you come here, they'll assist you. And I'm telling you now, it's groups that have been at the UN for the past 2 weeks that I'm sure none of you know about. And they look just like me and you. And a lot of y'all will call them crazy because you say they trying to be something they not. But they sitting in the UN banging on the beast for real. You understand? And that's who we need to start dealing with. We need to start dealing with real movements that have real power and jurisdiction. I understand the street movements, we feel good about ourselves, we feel like doing something. But when we start dealing with real politics and really taking control of our own, saying is the same way we come to these rallies, these events, this is just what powwow look like. Same thing. We need to start dealing with those nations because they are represented as nations. And when the European came here, there was no such thing as an RBG nation. There's no treaties for the RBG, right? There's no treaty for Muslims. There's no treaty for none of these people. Right, but there's treaties for the original tribes that was here. And every one of y'all got a piece of that in you. Whether your father's from Africa and your mother was from the Americas, you're still entitled to your mother's inheritance, right? So this is what we have to start dealing with. This is why they passed the one-drop rule. They passed the one-drop rule because you had our brothers and sisters who were so amalgamated and light-skinned, they could pass themselves off for white. But when they go home to their black mothers. And they feared that, you understand? So they had to create racial categories, and they had to stunt your development based on that racial category. So as long as we keep feeding into these racial categories, right, we're playing their game. People need to find out their nationality, and no disrespect to the Moors, but Moorish Americans not a nationality. You know what I'm saying? And I love the Moors, I love how they build, I love the information they bring to the forefront. But let's deal with it. And I dealt with Moors who admit to that. But let's just deal with it. Nationality, you're going to deal with a language, a location, more than likely a river, right? My people call it the Lenape. Okay.
One last question. I'm sorry, Ben is closing this. I want to get this in before we leave. Saying what you said about the Moors and that not being a nationality, how do you feel about Noble Drew Ali and what he brought to this country?
Noble Drew Ali did what he was supposed to do. He woke people up. Because see, when you study Noble Drew Ali, he'll tell you he was part Cherokee. So him establishing his jurisdiction through his Cherokee roots is all you have to do. Another thing people don't realize, where did Noble Drew Ali establish the first Moorish Science Temple? Nah. First Moorish Science Temple was located in Newark, New Jersey. Right? My tribal headquarters was in East Orange. Anybody that's familiar with Newark and East Orange knows it's the same place. So you think that Noble Drew Ali was establishing a headquarters for a nation down the street from a tribal headquarters and didn't have some interaction with those people? You understand? It's protocol and things of this nature. So Noble Drew Ali do what you're supposed to do, because like I said before, when people fall out of their identities, they take on a general term, just like we call ourselves black. So when people fell out of their nationalities because they was being outlawed and you couldn't be that or else your family be separated, you understand? If you had a light-skinned child and a brown-skinned child, they would separate the children, right? So to avoid all that, you say, well, I'm not Cherokee, I'm not Choctaw, I'm not Lenape, I'm Negro. Because now you can stay in your territory, you can stay where you own land, where you owned your farms, but you are no longer a threat because the Indians, right, so-called Indians, had jurisdiction. Did you know 100 years ago, if you were sick, you can go find an Indian, go to a doctor, and the doctor got to treat you free of charge if the Indian bring you in there? Yeah. Because he's indigenous to the land, and these people are foreign occupiers, right? So when you have a large group of indigenous people that can't be taxed, that's another thing. Indian means, fuck all that other shit. Indian means you can't get taxed by the European. So if you niggas want to run around here and be something you're not, fine. Indian means you can't be taxed. That's why they had to take you out of that status, so they could tax you. Because they got 1,000 people coming into their stores, and they can't tax none of them. They can't make money, right? So they got to remove you from who you are so they can raise the prices on you. It's all economics. You can check me out on, right now you can see me at Norris Francis, Branham on Turtle Gang. Just type in Turtle Gang. All my stuff will come up. Check me out at Boom Bap Nation. We're doing big things with this hip-hop movement, man. You know, and I'm always out here. I'm always in the background. I'm always lurking. I just, you know, I'm more reserved than a lot of these other people, but I got some information for you, you know what I mean? And I can show and prove for all of this. You understand? Everything.
Thank you for watching Up TV. If you like this video and would love to see
Okay, yeah, no, a couple of people sent me your work, or sent me your videos rather, so I'm familiar with your work. But in this particular case, somebody was spamming your telephone number to me, so are you, is this like, what's going on?
My brother, I mean, we live on air right now. I'm doing a live stream.
Okay.
And so we was having a conversation. We just got off, you know, we push the indigenous stuff out here, and I have a show going on right now called What is More Politically Beneficial, to be Aboriginal Indigenous or to be Black African American? And my brother just got off the phone. He's a Pan-African.
I mean, we already know Black and African American is out the window. Totally. I mean, it's not even in the window. I mean, that's a very deep conversation. I don't know. I mean, did you want me to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Go ahead. Go in. Let us know. That's why we're here.
Well, first of all, there's no documents indicating that African Americans or Blacks have any rights. Point blank period, all the way around. I mean, you could take it back all the way when it first started in the 60s. There's no record of that. There's also no record that we came from Africa. All information is coming from books and knowledge at school of, you know, that's called indoctrination by way of the industrialism system that was cultivated by Woodrow Wilson, J.P. Morgan, John D. Rockefeller, the University of Chicago, and a couple of other things in the early 1900s. The problem is that people are not pinpointing where that information arises from. Okay? None of that information existed in the 1800s. Now all of a sudden in the 1900s, it existed, but where did it come from? Okay? And that's the key. Where did it come from? Because we know W.E.B. Du Bois started his Pan-African agenda. Okay? He started it all, and we know Melville Herskovich, the Jew, okay, created the out of Africa theory up under Frank Boas. Both of them were coming out of the University of Chicago, in which Melville started teaching our people, still in Chicago, I believe it was the University of Northwestern, if I'm not mistaken, out of Africa theory. And in turn, that not only created, but it cultivated the out of Africa theory systematically. And now you're seeing all of these Pan-African pushing people, you know, trying to go viral, whatever they're trying to do. And that's the problem that we have. They're totally eradicating our history that we have here. Okay? Have here, totally, all the way around. It's America, North, South, Central, I don't care what you pick.
What's up, Richard?
Now, yes, I can admit that some of the Africans, okay, look like us, but not necessarily all the way to the phenotype. What I mean by that is, if you really want to look at the phenotypes, we're going to share the same phenotypes as those of the Pacific Islanders, okay? The Hawaiians, like for example, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. He looks like one of us. And as a matter of fact, from the videos that I saw, I believe that you're of lighter brown skin, and so am I, and so is Dwayne Johnson. Now, what are they going to say? He's African? When all of his family originated in Hawaii, okay, he has dual citizenship to Canada as a first, well, excuse me, what do they call it? They call themselves the First Nations, which means that they're indigenous to that land, not necessarily to Canada, but of course Canada has ties to Hawaii. Hawaii has ties to Alaska. Alaska has ties to the United States. We, as people in North America, have a problem politically with establishing our status because it's very simple. The majority of our people don't know who they are. It's that simple. They want to claim that they're African just because of a skin complexion. Now, they turn their nose up to religion. I'm not going for religion, but they turn their nose up to religion. Okay? Why would you turn your nose up to religion, but not turn your nose up to these DNA genealogy tests? Because they were created by the same people. Those were all Jews, or Jesuits rather. I'm talking about Germany, Hungary. I could go down the list. Those same people that you see fought against those same Europeans in World War I, the same people that created all of our history. Top, bottom. And I'm talking about the U.S. history and world history that we're familiar with this European colonization organization called the United States Incorporated. Now, that was established in 1776. Prior to that, it was the United States of America, of the Republic. That is still in existence, but people don't know about it. Those are the people, that are in treaties with, our ancestors. Those treaties, the same treaties are in existence right now and being held by Congress. It's unfortunate that we have to prove to our own people and even these pale faces of who we are. And when we do, we gotta double check and prove it again to these pale faces in court to let them know that we know that you know, okay, all about us, but now we know all about us. Give us back what's owed to us. Now, is it gonna happen? Yes. When? I don't know. But I do know as soon as everybody becomes cognizant of what's going on in today's society, okay, we got a whole bunch of people wrapped up together. You got the Freemasons, the Masonic people, you got I'm not even going to go down the list because I've been exposing them in every single one of my videos. And then have the same hue of complexion as us. This is the reason why I don't tie myself with any organization, corporation, institution, business, none of that. And I tell people all the time, if they don't have to believe me, I would love for you to do your own research. Don't believe me, write it down. I'm not here to do 3 jobs. I'm already writing, editing, and producing. I can't do the research for you, but I'm doing the research for you. You just gotta stop thinking, oh, I gotta give you everything all at once, when you can go check it for yourself. I've been doing this before Google existed. I'm talking about Napster, LimeWire days. See, people not gonna remember that. That was before the internet was infiltrated by the federal government. We know who is running Bing. We know who is running Google. The first 100 pages alone in a Google search is automatically generated with a hidden propaganda. So when you Google something, you're not going to know the truth just because it's on the first and second page. Just because you're on the internet and it's real easy to get to. In order for you to know the truth, you got to go get and find the truth on your own. Get up. Go to the Library of Congress. Go to the National Archives. Go to these historic places. See? And check for yourself. It's right there. And everybody wants to claim that the African beget. They can recall that the grandmothers or grandfathers told them that they got some Indian in them. In their family, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I don't like to use the term Indian, okay? I don't. But let's be real. Christopher Columbus came to where? South America. Where in South America did he come to? For him to mistake that he saw Indians. Mm-hmm. Why was it an English immigrant putting inside of a dictionary that he wrote in 1828 the definition of American was of copper-colored people? Now, when we look at these so-called Native Americans, are they copper-colored? Now, I mean, you could pick up a penny and put it on your arm, and you can see that you're copper-colored. Can they do the same? Mm-hmm. It's not hard. Where are the records of the transatlantic slave trade?
That's what I want to get into.
It doesn't exist. It does not exist.
Are you saying that there are no
it does not
records
exist.
of the transatlantic slave trade, brother?
They are lying, and they know they're lying, and I caught them in their lies. This is why I'm proving my theory, and I'll call it my theory. I say that everything was told to us, everything here was told to us in reverse. Now, when they said we came from Africa, hold on. I got the records proving that they came from here to Africa. See? I got those records. I have those. The National Archives is unbiased. It's not tied to a FBI. It's not tied to an IMF. None of that. That is an unbiased institution. Mm-hmm. That is independent. When I request this information, I put in a Freedom of Information request. Sometimes I gotta come out of pocket to pay for this information. Yeah? When I put that stuff out in documentary format, that's not to make money. That's to educate the people of what they will never be told. Not only our generation or our past generations, but I'm talking about the future generation, our children, our children's children. When is the revolution going to start if it's not going to be televised?
Right.
When is it going to start? It's going to start now. It's going to start Now we can debate with these Pan-African people all day long. We can. But what is the end result to a debate? When there's nothing to debate, there's a difference between fact and truth now. Fact is debatable because a fact is based off someone else's opinion. When in turn, truth is non-debatable because it makes logical sense. You cannot take 12.5 million enslaved so-called Africans from anywhere in Africa and bring them here to America without telling me how many whites it took to do that. Mm-hmm. See? The U.S. Census started in the 1790s. Then is when he told you that it was millions of whites here. Prior to that, is no record? Wait a minute, where did the whites come from? Before it was colonized and named Europe, what was it called? See, that's a real good question. Because then when you find out and research what Europe is, then you're going to notice that Europe was a part of Africa and still is. Where did those albinos go? Some of them went to Brazil. But wait a minute, so think about it. If Christopher Columbus went to the Atlantic to get to Africa from Europe, how come it was so easy for him to go to South America and South America is at the bottom? I'm talking about winters, summers. They didn't lost. He went 4 voyages, lost one or two ships. But you mean to tell me that he went across the Atlantic with no problem? You're alive. This is the reason why I said it was in reverse. That map is flipped upside down because he didn't take the Atlantic. He took the Nile. And they want you to think that the Nile is in Africa. The Nile is the Mississippi River. The Nile is the Mississippi River, and they named parts of that river different places. That Mississippi River can take you anywhere. And listen to this, in the southeastern side of the North America lands, still to this very day, they are lying.
Hold on, say that again.
That's why them Pan-Africans can.
Say that again.
That's why they can't handle me.
The Mississippi River can take you anywhere.
If you take, when you flip that Nile over, okay, I'm talking about flip the map, flip it upside down. That means that, Christopher Columbus could get to South America quicker. Why would he go from Africa, from Europe, pick one, from Europe to South America and skip north? There's only one way for him to do that, is if it's closer. Of course he had help. He had Iberians with him. They want to call them the Moors, the navigators, the anchors. Yes, because they're all Africans. All of them. Of course they had help to navigate these waters. They never been on this side before. That's why they called it New World. But wait a minute. Why did they call it the New World? Why did they call the New World the Third World? That's the reason why. Where's the second? Where is the second? They don't want to tell you what South America is. South America is 100 times bigger than Europe alone. That's the reason why they're hiding what South America really is. When they really do the research, and I'll drop this bomb right now.
So this will be
I'm
real.
going to come up with a documentary with it. I'm probably still going to release it. South America is Atlantis. It ain't gone. It's right there. Combine Atlantis and South America, and you got double the size of Africa. Not only that, you're going to notice that it's not separated. Accretion means that water rise. That means that land didn't disappear. That land is up under water.
Right.
We are still connected. They were lying all the way, brother. I don't know how long I've been talking.
It don't matter, brother. Go in.
Look.
Let me.
I'm trying my hardest.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying my hardest to tell my people, to tell our people the truth. Not no fact, not no my own opinion. I'm trying to tell them the truth. Melville wrote that story single-handedly. And W.E.B. Du Bois was right up under his ass.
Oh.
W.E.B. Du Bois went to Harvard. Frank Boas taught him that. Frank Du Bois also taught Melville. Taught these Jews here. All of that information did not exist prior to that. All of these anthropologists of the 19th century is to blame. Mm-hmm. We could trickle that all the way down to Charles Darwin. Okay? We could go to Francis Galton with eugenics. It's a long line of mental rehabilitation dealing with our people. In order to connect the dots, you gotta trace them. You gotta trace them. Find out some sources here. And I'm not talking about you.
Yeah, I still got.
I'm not talking about you.
Like
I'm talking about, because if we live,
40 or 50 bucks, man.
it got to be some people listening. And it better be some researchers.
Yeah,
Hurry
well,
up.
we got damn near 100 people listening.
Off the internet.
Hey,
Hurry
damn.
up and listen. They taking that stuff off the internet. I done lost 7 of my videos on YouTube here. Lost them. They gone. I'm not doing this for nothing else but my people. I'm sorry for yelling. I know y'all done heard a different side of me because I get real passionate when I talk about this. This is the reason why I normally don't go live. Because this is so critical at this time. At this time, we need it now. We need it now. The word black is B-L-A-C. That is a Latin word that means pale. That's coming from white. They're lying to you. Black is white. White is black. When you look at the color scheme, black is creating all the colors. They lie, man. Latin is the problem. This English language ain't nothing but Latin. Trace it right back to their Latin languages. See what they do? They took our indigenous tongue from our great-great-grandmothers and said, nah, nigga, listen, you gonna speak English. You gonna learn that, and you gonna worship our God. I don't care about your spirituality. That's what they did. Stuck our ancestors in them Indian schools. And all the rest of them churches they created by the Catholics. Okay? I could go on down. Catholics, Baptists, Methodists, it's all across the South. Right now. Still, to this very day, none of them statues come down. Why? Because the Confederate war that was against the North ain't had nothing but our ancestors fighting. It wasn't enough white folks. They used our ancestors, lied and said they were going to pay. Okay? Lied. Those that got paid opened up Freeman bank accounts. The problem resides is that my people don't know who stopped Black Wall Street in D.C., New York, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's somebody that says, I've seen your complexion, that stuff. Right now, it's a problem. You gotta look at that. And do not look past your own people here. Our own people. Our own people. And it's sad. It's so sad. Because they see us. They know who we are. They know that we're the Indians of this land, the American Indians. not Native American. That term didn't even exist. American Indian existed and still does. Indigenous, autochthonous, about more to you. All of that stuff existed here. And they lying, and they know they are. That slave trade story was told to us in reverse. We did not come from Africa. They sent our ancestors to Africa. I got the documents. They documented everything, y'all. You can look at the voyages and see if that was your ancestors that came off of those boats. No, you're going to realize that it wasn't your ancestors. It was nothing but tail faces coming off of those boats from Europe and Africa. That's documented. I ain't got no reason to lie to you. You don't believe me? Good. Go look it up. And I'm not talking about Google. Go start traveling. Stop listening to Google. Google lying and telling you that BdowN happened millions of years ago. It's still here. The movie with Black Panther telling you Wakanda in Africa. The logo that I have on my video is the same bird. Let me stop. Hold. Let me stop right there. I gotta go, brother. Let me go.
Yo, so damn.
I'm gonna get your number from. Email me your number, brother. I gotta go. Okay.
What's your email, brother? Because I definitely want to continue this conversation and get you back here, man.
Send it to my man. Send it to I'm just here to make you think at gmail.com.
All right, what's going on, man? You getting a little too wide. You got to run. You got something to do. You people are feeling you right now.
I do gotta go, brother. I'm not trying to. I gotta go. I gotta knock this out. I was actually in the middle of something, but I mean, I love my people. I love y'all to death. I even love all of y'all. I don't care what religion you with. It's not about that.
Let me ask you this, though, brother. Before you go, let me ask you this. A couple of things. One is you say, you talk about the documentation and stuff like that. And obviously, this is a information war. There's people opposed to it. On March 18th, we have something set up with the House of Consciousness. And I told them I was going to put together, a team of indigenous people to present the information. And we're trying to have a conversation where this information comes out before all the people so people can make the proper decision. Are you willing to take part in that conversation?
What date is that land on?
March 18th. That lands on a Sunday.
Oh, that should be good. Should be good. Just send that to that email. Send that to that email because I have to schedule that.
Okay.
I'm not trying to make it seem like I'm super busy, but I am busy.
Okay.
I'm behind. I gotta put a lot of stuff down.
And also, I'm gonna email you, man, because like I said, man, I've been watching your work for a while, and I'm hoping, because there's all different type of listeners and people, and a lot of the Pan Africans don't get the information. So I'm hoping I can get you here one day, and you can.
That's not what my comments say.
Well, yeah, okay.
I got comments from Hebrew Israelites, Pan Africans, Moors. I love them all. I don't care what religion you pick.
Right.
Pan African ain't nothing but a religion.
But see, here's all I'm saying is that a lot of people are still saying you sound great. They're saying they want to see the documentation and see all this stuff. So I'm just saying I just want to hopefully I can arrange something with you, man, where you come on the show and we just get it in and you just lay it down and put the smack down and put that information out there. I'm just hoping we can arrange something like that.
I don't have no problem with doing that. I do that consistently on my channel already.
I know.
I don't have no problem with doing that. I mean, this is long and disrespectful because I know how they get. I know how they want to push out that and how they want to try to get some money to their family. They know if they put me on their show, they ain't going to have no money. See?
That's why we're
That's
bringing
up to him.
it. That's why we bringing them over here. So and we're gonna set it up, man. So it's narrated properly, done respectful, and we're gonna have that conversation on the home court. So March 18th.
Send it to me, bro. Send it to me.
Absolutely.
Send that to me. I don't. Send that to me. I don't got no problem.
That's
if they want
what's
to
up.
act like men, fine. If they gonna act like men, they need to start changing that. I bet they're gonna lie and say their parents said they came from Africa. Yeah, okay. All right.
Right.
We'll see.
So we're gonna deal with the.
We'll see. You know what you gotta tell them? You gotta tell them if your parents saying that you came from Africa, and they considering us African Americans, okay? When they consider us, what do they consider those Africans? What's on their nationality ID? It says white. Ain't no better than that.
Really?
African where? Now, okay. In a totally different sector, we're African. In a totally different tax bracket when they come here.
Come get it, man.
I can't go on and on about that.
Man, absolutely.
Time. It's been time. It's been that time. And I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not. That needs to stop. I mean, that's been going on since the 60s here.
Yeah.
All that stuff ain't getting nowhere. They're not talking about nothing economically. Nothing like that. That's another thing. They never talk about building money. They never talk about mining land. They don't talk about the key things. But
Right.
But it needs to get done. I'm tired. I'm tired of that. I really am.
It absolutely does, man.
And they know it.
And
They know it. That's wrong.
Well, it's time to show and prove, man. That's why. Like I said, I've been telling people I gotta get the game out of the way for probably the last 2 or 3 weeks.